of Communications. We're live from the Robotic Operations Center, where NASA is developing some of the technologies needed for its Asteroid Redirect mission, or ARM. You just saw a short video highlighting the mission, and we have some special guests here today to tell us more about what ARM is, how it will enable our journey to Mars, and help protect our planet. Our first guest today is the President's Science Advisor, Dr. John P. Holdren, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, and ARM Program Director Michelle Gates. First, we will hear some remarks from Mr. Holdren.
Thank you very much. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. I wanted to put the ARM mission in context of the President's and NASA's vision for expanding the human exploration of space. That vision is ambitious, it's coherent, it's systematic. It has four major pieces. The first piece of that strategy is working with the private sector, working with industry to develop the most cost-effective capacities to expand our presence in space that we possibly can. The second component is developing the new, innovative, advanced technologies that will be needed to take us all the way to Mars and beyond. That involves in-space refueling, it involves habitat development, it involves how you protect astronauts on these long missions, it involves advanced propulsion and much more. The third element of this strategy is extending the use of the International Space Station into the mid-2020s so that it can continue to serve as a test bed for some of those advanced technologies and a jumping off point, as well as a scientific platform, an educational platform, even a diplomatic platform. The fourth component is a set of missions of increasing ambition, taking humans further and further into space, beyond, way beyond low Earth orbit. What we'll be doing next is setting up operations in a stable orbit around the moon, which in fact is the most sensible jumping off point for a Mars mission, because as opposed to the surface of the moon, you don't have to spend the energy to lift all of your payloads back out of moon's gravity. This is a conclusion of, I think, everybody who's looked really carefully at the dynamics and the mechanics of getting to Mars. You do it from a jumping off point in stable orbit around the moon. The ARM mission exploits and will exploit a whole variety of technologies that come together to advance our progress toward the moon. One is human operations in a stable orbit around the moon. Another is the combination of robotic capabilities that will pull a boulder from an asteroid and bring it into that orbit, and the human capabilities, the judgment, the on-the-spot decision-making that only humans can deliver. And the demonstration of advanced electric propulsion capabilities that will be used to reach that asteroid and bring a boulder back from it. And the other benefits of this mission, which are just extraordinary, include demonstrating capabilities that ultimately we may need to deflect an asteroid on a collision course with the Earth. This is a hazard that 65 million years ago the dinosaurs succumbed to. We have to be smarter than the dinosaurs. They went extinct when a large asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula. And we are going to get better through this asteroid redirect mission at identifying dangerous asteroids, learning how to deflect them, and we'll learn in addition how to exploit asteroids commercially. Asteroids contain materials that can be used to resupply space missions and ultimately may be valuable sources of materials for long-term existence of humans in space. You know, President Obama has said, we're going to space not just to visit, but to stay. And the asteroid mission is the next important step on that trajectory.
Excellent, thank you, sir. We'll now hear from Administrator Bolden.
Thanks very much, and I want to thank Dr. Holdren especially for taking time to come out here and be with us on this very special day. It's a full day. I also want to thank Michelle Gates, who's the program manager for the Asteroid Redirect mission. As I said, we're going to talk just a little bit briefly about the overview of the mission, a little details, and then the big part of the day is this afternoon when industry is allowed to come in and spend a little time with us. And they've been working with us for a number of years now, but this is sort of the piece de resistance when we bring them in and let them actually look at the mock-ups. I have to thank also Chris Scalise and the team out here at Goddard for not only hosting and establishing this test facility, but for hosting this particular program. So thanks again to Chris and the team here. You know, engineers and scientists actually around the world have been involved in thinking about this for a number of years now. As Dr. Holdren said, we want to be smarter than the dinosaur. And at NASA, what we've tried to do is take a step-by-step incremental approach to being able to get humans to Mars. If you look at how we've arranged it, we have three, I consider them zones in the solar system. And those zones are actually, you know, where we live today. We live and work in near-Earth orbit. We've been on the International Space Station for almost 16 years, and we have learned a lot, and there's a lot more to be learned, as Dr. Holdren mentioned. The other thing is the next area we want to go is back to the lunar vicinity. And so when we're working on the International Space Station, we just call that the Earth-reliant phase. We rely on our home planet. We're hours away, so we can get supplies, we can rescue crews, we can do lots of things. We want to next move out where we're a little bit more distant, and in that particular case, when we go out to what we call cislunar space, the vicinity around the moon, we're going to be a couple of days away. So that's going to stretch our capabilities. We're going to have to figure out new ways to supply ourselves, to test the technologies that are going to be necessary when we finally take the big step to go with humans out to Mars. So time-wise, we've been working on this Earth-reliant phase for about 50 years when you really get down to it. When we move out to cislunar space, that's going to be the period of the 20s. And then when you get to the 30s, then now we're going to be Earth independent. That is a big step. You know, we've been dreaming, humans have been dreaming of going to Mars as long as people have been looking up at the sky almost, and we're finally almost there. Some of us can taste it. So when we move out to Mars, that's what we call the Earth independent stage, where we're going to have to either take stuff with you, make it on the way, or make it when you get to the Martian surface. So those are the technologies that Dr. Holdren was talking about. We're really excited about being out here to talk a little bit about the asteroid redirect mission, because for us, having been an astronaut before and having found out that flying in space is not like flying an airplane, things that you intuitively do when you're flying an airplane don't work in space due to something called orbital mechanics. We also know that when we get to low gravity and no gravity environments, the way that we will be around some of the moons of Mars and other places, we're going to have to teach ourselves new techniques. We're going to have to learn new procedures. In trying to open this up to bring the commercial entities in, we also want to develop technologies and techniques that we can then hand off to private enterprises, whether they're entrepreneurs, academics, or industry, so that they can do things like asteroid mining. So that's the big purpose for the asteroid redirect mission. It's an important step for us on the journey to Mars. It's going to give us an opportunity to sit out in the proving ground and make sure that we understand the kinds of things that we need to do when we finally send our astronauts to Mars, because it's an exciting time, but you know, we've got to have our act together when we go there. So hopefully you all will learn a little bit more than you knew when you started this program today, and I'm going to let you turn it over to Michelle, because she's the expert here with us, and she'll give us a little bit more detail.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here with both of you, Dr. Holdren and Administrator Bolden. The asteroid redirect mission really is a vital step in our journey to Mars, in particular that proving ground of cislunar space. As we move from the Earth-reliant operations in low Earth orbit to the proving ground where we can get our astronaut crews back within a matter of days if we need to, and then to Earth-reliant phase where, for example, missions to Mars are on the scale of years in duration. The asteroid redirect mission really provides a demonstration and an important integrated mission opportunity in cislunar space. There is a robotic mission component and a crewed mission component. The robotic mission does have a first ever demonstration of advanced solar electric propulsion in moving multi-ton masses through interplanetary space-like trajectories. In particular, we will use this advanced solar electric propulsion system to transit a couple of years to a near-Earth asteroid and acquire a multi-ton boulder, as you mentioned, Dr. Holdren, from the surface of the asteroid. We will then actually use the gravitational mass of that multi-ton boulder and the spacecraft to alter the trajectory of the parent asteroid in a deflection demonstration for planetary defense purposes, as you had mentioned as well. We'll then use the spaceflight system to ferry that multi-ton asteroidal mass back to a gravitationally neutral point in the lunar vicinity, as you mentioned as well. About 10 years from now, our astronauts will launch on the Space Launch System and Orion crew capsules, our next generation systems under development now by the agency that we'll start testing with our crews 5 to 7 years from now, I believe, if my memory serves. But 10 years from now, our crews will transit the several-day trip to the asteroid boulder, multi-ton mass, and the SEP spacecraft, rendezvous with it, and select, extract, and return samples with them in the Orion capsule back here to Earth.
Thank you.
Great, thank you all. You did a great job explaining to us why the asteroid redirect mission is important to our nation and the journey to Mars. So Michelle, I'm going to ask you a question. Tell us a little bit more about where we actually are in mission formulation.
Absolutely, and so the crewed mission segment that I had mentioned is still in pre-formulation. It is planned as an early mission in cislunar space. It's about 25 days to a month in duration, so it's a significant duration for our astronaut crews in the mid-2020s. The robotic mission just received approval for Phase B, which is the phase of spacecraft development in which we baseline a mission design, including spacecraft design, trajectory design, orbital mechanics, mission duration, and all of the technical parameters that define the spacecraft mission. The preliminary design review and baseline is planned for late in 2017, and then a follow-on approval at the agency level for March of 2018. There are many systems under prototype, including the ones you see behind us, the robotic systems for capture. The spacecraft development is ongoing with industry to leverage commercial capabilities that industry can provide to us, as well as provide a path for industry use of advanced solar electric propulsion in the future.
Thank you, Michelle. Dr. Holdren, you touched on this a little bit in terms of planetary defense. If you think about an asteroid heading toward Earth, it sounds like something out of the movies, but are we as a nation prepared for that?
We are not fully prepared, but we are on a trajectory to get much more so. We've invested increasing resources in detecting asteroids of a dangerous size that could be on a collision course with the Earth. We've had some recent experiences that indicate how challenging this is. In 2013, a smallish asteroid exploded over Siberia with the force of about 400 kilotons or 500 kilotons of TNT. Did a lot of damage on the ground. Something like 1,000 people were injured by flying glass and so on. That explosion was in the range of 30 times bigger than the Hiroshima nuclear bomb. We had in 1908 a much larger asteroid explosion, again over a part of Siberia. Fortunately did not occur over a heavily populated area, but it exploded with the equivalent of multiple megatons of explosive force. So we know that this does happen. It's rare. The impact that occurred in 2013 is estimated to have been a 1 in 100-year event. The impact that occurred in 1908 was estimated to have been a 1 in 1,000-year event. But again, if we are going to be as capable a civilization as our technology allows, we need to be prepared for even those rare events because they could do a lot of damage to the Earth. And as part of that preparation, we have the planetary defense aspects of the asteroid retrieval mission. Again, I would emphasize that the asteroid retrieval mission makes sense in about 5 different ways. It makes sense for science, for better understanding the composition of asteroids and what they can tell us about the origins of the solar system. It makes sense from the standpoint of technology demonstration, demonstrating technologies that we're going to need for the mission to Mars. It makes sense in terms of human operations in cislunar space, again, the most appropriate stepping off point for Mars. And it makes sense for the possibilities of using asteroids as sources of materials, potentially sources of fuel, sources of water, to resupply space missions and ultimately to meet needs on Earth. So this is a multi-purpose mission but the planetary defense aspect is one important part of it.
Understood. Thank you. Administrator Bolden, as we know, the second part of this mission involves sending a crew to the asteroid Boulder. Can you tell us where we are with the development of the systems that will send them there?
We're actually going to have an opportunity to talk about some of them this afternoon. One of the things that we're very proud of is the fact that we have the SLS, the Space Launch System, and the Orion crew module that have now been in development. They're off the drawing board. We now are cutting hardware. We've actually flown Orion successfully back in December of 2014. A very successful mission, farther away from Earth than any vehicle intended to carry humans had been in more than 40 years. I love to tell people, come with me to Michoud outside of New Orleans, where you can actually see the barrel sections of the massive Space Launch System now being welded and assembled. We are going to fly the test flight of SLS and Orion mated in 2018. That will be an uncrewed mission out to the vicinity of the moon and orbit several times. And then in the early 2020s, we'll put a crew on board Orion and fly that particular mission. In the mid-20s, when I say Michelle and her team are successful in moving the asteroidal mass to cislunar space and to a stable orbit around the moon, we're actually going to allow a crew to attach themselves to the device that some of you can see behind me, and they'll actually use that as an exit way out of Orion onto the asteroidal mass, where they can do experimentation on technology development, on procedures development. And this is a continuation. I talk about step-by-step things all the time. We've actually been doing simulations at the Johnson Space Center, simulations here, simulations at many of our NASA centers. We've also spent the last, I think, 3 years in our underwater proving ground called NEMO. So that has been dedicated to asteroid research, if you will. How do humans attach themselves to an asteroid, which may be no gravity or very low gravity? So we've been coming along up until now, and the mid-2020s will give us an opportunity to really send a crew out to do some of the kinds of things that we think we may have to do when you get out into the Martian environment, where you're distant from Earth, out in the Earth independent phase, where our crews will be much better prepared to do the kinds of operations that they want out there. So it's an incremental, step-by-step approach that we're using.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Gates, can you tell us a little bit more about the target asteroid that we have in mind that we're going to visit?
Sure, absolutely. And in fact, the science community selected our reference target, which is 2008 EV5. It is a carbonaceous asteroid, believed to be one of potentially 4 types. It is anticipated to be potentially 20% water, volatile rich, and contains the compounds from early formation of the solar system, that the record that's only available through certain classes of asteroids. The asteroid has never been visited before, which was a desire of the science community. The resources community, in particular, folks who are interested in using asteroidal resources, asteroidal mining, in situ resources, are very interested in this target as well. And so our mission design work is all being done around this target. Our capture capability prototyping you see behind us is being done with the assumptions of this target. And we have a very lengthy report from the external community, actually, recently out in February of this year, available on our website, www.nasa.gov/ARM, the FAST report, which is 167 pages of detail, if anyone is interested.
Cheryl, I can add one thing. I can't believe I forgot this, but last week we had an incredible mission that was launched called OSIRIS-REx.
Yes.
And as I talk about an incremental approach to what we're doing, a lot of the folk who are here at Goddard, because they were essentially the key members of the OSIRIS-REx team, we launched a satellite that is going to make a couple of year transit to another asteroid that is pretty well studied, Bennu. When it gets there, we're going to study that asteroid for about 2 years. We're going to pick landing sites, we're going to do a better characterization of it, and then finally, when we're confident that we know where we want to land and how to do it, the OSIRIS-REx is actually going to take itself down to very close proximity to the surface of Bennu and use a long arm that'll go down, penetrate the surface, and cause dust and debris and and whatever you want to call it from an asteroid to come up and be captured into a canister that we will then bring back to Earth for subsequent study. So it'll go into what we currently call the lunar repository at the Johnson Space Center, where planetary scientists will be able to take real samples from Bennu and begin to study them. And that will feed in to the subsequent asteroid redirect mission. So everything we do is incrementally planned to support each other. And I did not want to forget about OSIRIS-REx.
Thank you for adding that. Very quickly, do you have any last remarks? Because we're going to wrap up here. Dr. Gates?
I just encourage folks to visit our website and look at all the recent progress, including with the spacecraft bus, our announcement for partnerships that was just released, the prototyping information on our technologies, and all the benefits of the mission that Dr. Holdren spoke of.
I'm just happy to be here and have Dr. Holdren here. It's not every day that we get the President's Science Advisor to come out to the Goddard Space Flight Center. So excited about this mission, excited about the fact that we're going to expose industry to it again today and let them give us some inputs, but just real good time for the agency.
And I would just add that the President is excited about this mission as well. He spoke about an asteroid mission in 2010 when he talked about the way we were building a systematic, coherent, visionary approach to moving deeper into space and conducting ever more elaborate operations in space. We think this mission is a great example that pulls together so many threads of what we need to be doing on the
/ARM. You can tune into our virtual update, and immediately following that at 3 p.m. Eastern today, we're going to have a Facebook Live Q&A with more staff to talk about the asteroid redirect mission. Again, check out www.nasa.gov/ARM. Thank you.
Thought of visitors from another planet would give a lot of folks the willies.
Yeah, one man says it's been happening and that the government, specifically NASA, knows about it. J.R. Barry has the story.
It's a question man has been asking for centuries. Are we alone? And could there really be life out there somewhere? For some, the answer is easy. NASA, they say, knows that alien life exists and that we're being visited on a regular basis.
Maybe the powers to be are setting us up for disclosure and making it more subtle so that it isn't a big jolt to us.
Clifford Cliff is the worldwide director of MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. They have some 1,000 investigators. One of their latest investigations has to do with this video from January 28th of this year. A mysterious light is seen descending from the sky in Jerusalem. Multiple videos have surfaced of the supposed event. They all show the light hovering above the Dome of the Rock. After a few seconds, there appears to be some sort of energy burst. And then the light zooms away. So, is this proof positive that aliens exist, or is it nothing more than an elaborate hoax? MUFON believes NASA knows for sure.
They do have a significant amount of information about the UFO phenomenon and ETs that they have not disclosed that are still there. Some of the astronauts have come forward now and are indicating that they have seen and witnessed things that were beyond their explanation.
Last October, during a satellite interview with NASA Director Charlie Bolden, I asked the former astronaut if he had ever seen anything in space.
JR, I must admit, everybody that goes to space wants to see an alien. Or wants to see some evidence that there is other life in our universe, and I'm no different. But I am here to report that I saw no evidence, although deep in my heart I believe that there is good potential for other life in our universe.
There is no doubt we are being visited.
However, one of Bolden's colleagues says otherwise. Dr. Edgar Mitchell was the sixth man to walk on the moon. He came forward years ago claiming to have proof that alien life is out there.
The universe that we live in is much more wondrous, exciting, complex, and far-reaching than we were ever able to know up to this point in time. And the fact we have wondered Were we alone in the universe forever? Only in our period do we really have evidence, no, we're not alone.
So what's going on here? Why the different stories from two credible NASA sources? Last month, I had the chance to catch up with the NASA director again, this time in person, and I asked him about Ed Mitchell's stunning comments.
Ed Mitchell is a big believer in extraterrestrials. And as you and I talked about before, I am one who, because of my faith, I believe that there is very likely other life somewhere else in the universe. I just don't have any evidence to back that up. But Edgar is one who, contrary to my observations, actually claims to have evidence that extraterrestrials exist.
Well, even the Vatican is waiting.
12 VP 113, jokingly dubbed Biden. Get it? Corey Powers, editor-at-large for Discover Magazine in studio. How you doing, Corey?
VP Biden.
Right on.
There we go.
Correct on that. Two images show you. This is the arrow obviously pointing to it. But there are three dots on here. One is red, one is green, one is blue.
Right.
What's significant?
So this is the actual discovery image. Basically, two astronomers were looking one little patch of sky very, very far away, looking for exactly this kind of thing. Stars don't move. Planets or anything that's like a planet does. So this is color-coded. This is what they saw on different nights. They're looking for one thing moving. They color-coded it to show that all these stars are staying still. This thing is moving, and the way it's moving...
So this is just one...
It's one object, color-coded.
Is Pluto on this?
Pluto's in a whole different part of the sky.
So this is way out there.
This is way out there. This is more than twice as far away as Pluto.
Unbelievable. Why does this matter, Corey?
Well, there are two ways you can look at it. I think I look at it first of all as an exploration question. That we know where we are on Earth. We've mapped our planet. Our solar system is still terra incognita. It's full of surprises. This object is something that astronomers said shouldn't even be there. There's a whole other solar system beyond the planets that we know that are full of these things that are sort of planets, sort of comets. Some of them they call dwarf planets. That's what they're calling this one. What we're seeing is we're seeing our neighborhood. We're seeing what's around us. And then the second part is we're seeing where we came from.
Go back to the other image, you guys, and we'll show, because we're over here on the left, right?
That's right. So we're over here.
Okay.
There's
Pluto's out here.
Yeah.
And this thing called Maki is way out here.
That's right. So that's another dwarf planet. If you want to find out where VP 113 or Biden is located, keep walking about another 30 feet that way.
Wow. We can see that far.
And this is the closest it gets this time. When it really gets cooking, it's 15 times as far away as Pluto.
That's incredible.
Takes 4,300 years to go around the sun.
I don't know how you know that, but I trust you. What is a dwarf planet?
So a dwarf planet, the fact that you hear weird terms like that is actually scientists saying there are things out there we don't really understand. It's a dwarf planet is kind of a catch-all term for something. It's round like a planet. It sort of looks like a planet, but it doesn't orbit in a regular way like all the planets that we knew growing up.
Would this be part of our solar system?
So it's part of our solar system.
Would it be outside?
It's a whole new zone. they're calling it the inner Oort cloud. You don't really need to know that. All you need to know is there really are these two solar systems. There's the solar system with the classical planets, and then there's this whole other zone that we haven't explored. And now they're saying because of how this new dwarf planet moves, that there may actually be an even bigger planet, something bigger than the Earth.
I guess that's the point I was going to, because you study this all the time. Is that why it's so significant? Because there's more beyond that?
There's more beyond that, and then there's more beyond that. I mean, I think what we're seeing is, if you watch the show Cosmos, I've been kind of glued to that. And in the last episode, they were talking about the discovery of comets and the discovery of our place in the solar system. We're still learning that. We're still learning this right now, and there's still.
Man. All right.
Yeah.
Just like you're out of space, I'm out of time.
But this this is where we came from. This is why we're here. Oceans, continents, air,
Thank you,
us.
Corey.
It's all part of that.
You got it, man. Good to have you back.
Ingenuity, huge amounts of computing power, and then hours and hours, months of discussions with colleagues and poring over the data to validate the results.
Thank you. I realize you're focusing on near-Earth asteroids today, but there's been so much talk about the potential for finding a Planet X or some sort of large body through the WISE survey. Can you comment on any status on that sort of search, or maybe even reassure people that Planet X isn't coming to get them next year?
Yes, this is Amy Meinzer. I'm happy to answer this one. Planet X is not coming to get us. But we are looking to see if there are any other bodies in the outer part of the solar system with the WISE data. This is a very natural project for WISE. And so we're still working on it right now. We've obviously just returned a huge amount of data from the telescope that's going to take us a long time to sort through. But the initial results are very promising. You may have seen earlier results where we've discovered a new class of very cool type of stars with WISE. But the search is still on, and we don't think that there's anything that's hazardous in the outer solar system. We think that this is just a sort of if there is something out there, it would be a large body in a roughly circular orbit.
Our next caller, Denise Chow from space.com. Denise.
So when you say the initial results are very promising, the initial results are very promising. Anything else you wanted to say on that point?
We've actually been able to confirm the discovery of 100 new objects that are these very cool stars called brown dwarfs. And so that's very similar to what people are interested in looking for. So we've actually found some of these that are relatively close to the Earth, but none of these are closer at this point than the nearest star to our solar system. So it's a good start, though.
Pluto, the sometimes planet, may be hiding a pretty huge secret. Well, two huge secrets, actually. Astronomers in Spain believe that hiding behind Pluto, obscured from our view, are two additional giant planets. Spanish scientists in Madrid discovered the potential for the two massive celestial bodies at the outer reaches of our solar system after studying strange patterns in the orbit of rocky objects around Pluto, including the newly discovered dwarf planet 2012 VP113. Scientists believe the first hidden world would be about 10 times the mass of Earth. They believe that this planet is moving in resonance with a bigger planet that is somewhere between Mars and Jupiter in size and would orbit 200 times the Earth's distance from the Sun. But can we ever conclusively confirm the existence of these two planets? Well, Scott Shepard at the Carnegie Institution for Science had this to say. As there are only a few of these extremely distant objects known, it's hard to say anything definitive about the number or location of any distant planets. However, in the near future, we should have more objects to work with to help us determine the structure of the outer solar system. So there you have it. Time will tell.
And now men want to ask me why I'm not into the playoffs this weekend. I'm sorry. I'm so busy covering the incredible hardcore news that I haven't even gotten into the 9th planet that was discovered that they announced last week. And, of course, they discovered it a long time ago. They just got around to telling us. And there's a reason they didn't get around to telling us about it. I am someone who always got sick and tired of hearing about Planet X. Because as long as I've been on the air, people are saying it's coming next year, it's coming in 3 orbit that doesn't go in circles around the sun, but goes way out past the Kuiper Belt and comes in basically at an elliptical. And then I started reading deeper into this planet, and there it was, a 20,000-year deformed orbit going out into deep space, 10 times the size of the Earth. It is Planet X, folks. Isn't that just perfect that this would just show up while all this circus is going on? Now I want to be clear about this. It fits the bill of Planet X. They're probably 50, 60, 100, 1,000, I don't know, Planet X's. They've already chronicled hundreds and hundreds of planetoids bigger than Pluto in the Kuiper Belt out past the former 9th planet, named after the god of the underworld, a fitting name, the Roman god of hell. So they said no more 9th planet because we got to say we have hundreds of planets if there's things bigger than it. Well, Pluto's little. This sucker is gigantor. Compared to Pluto. They're in the news today, meteorologists talking about how the moon being full during the blizzard is going to make it worse, and it does. It affects space winds, winds of space, the sun, and a lot more. Why the full moon could make this weekend's blizzard more destructive. Who knows what this planet is going to do coming closer in to the solar system? Because here's the deal. It's been way out there for however long, and now they've tracked its course and think it's every 20,000 years, right out of what the ancient Babylonians and the Mayans and all these other cultures said this big planet comes through and that there's earthquakes and volcanoes and all hell breaks loose, and it comes through every 20,000 years, and then now here it comes. Now, I don't know if this is the one, because there's so many of them out there. Who knows what's out there? We're too busy looking at Hillary Clinton and going, I'm voting for her because she's a woman. Who cares? What I'm getting at is we don't have time for racism and sexism and all this fighting and all this garbage and all this divide and conquer when we have genetic engineering going on, splicing and mutating every species on the planet like something out of H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau squared. Planet X, they discovered it. 10 times bigger than Earth, the size of Neptune, a gas giant, with a 20,000-year orbit, exactly what a bunch of the ancients said. They said it when it comes back through, it causes massive catastrophes, volcanoes, you name it. By the way, Kit gave me a whole stack of articles about record volcanoes. I laid it somewhere, I think in there by the coffee pot. But I'm going to have to actually get to that halfway into the hour with Michael Schneider from the Economic Collapse blog and get his take on it. And here's the deal, folks. I don't want to say I'm eating my hat on this, but I've been very, very critical of the perennial books that have been coming out since the mid-90s about Planet X is coming. It's a gas giant, 20,000-year elliptical orbit. You know, the Babylonians talked about it, the Zoroasters, the Mayans. I never said that I didn't think that there aren't a whole bunch of planets out there. They've proven there's hundreds of them that are out in the Kuiper Belt past Pluto. That's why they delisted it, as I said earlier. What I was getting at is constantly saying it's coming next year and constantly saying it's the end of the world and the movie 2012, and then I get blamed for it. They would, I mean, there's so many news articles going, Alex Jones is the one that said we didn't go to the moon and that aliens run everything and that the Himalayas are going to be, you know, at sea level. Hey, Alex, 2012 didn't kill everybody. And so it just gets old. But it does show how the ancients were certainly right about big planets that come through, and there are big disasters, and there are big asteroids that hit the Earth, and there are big Earth changes, and the elite shouldn't be the focus of everything. They're all busy. I saw another headline last week going, Alex Jones says the elite want off-world colonies to escape Earth. I was quoting top elitist on their way to Davos saying that was going to be up for discussion. It was mainstream news. So even when there's mainstream news that, you know, Thiel and all these other folks and you know, the Tesla owner and all the rest of it are saying we need a Mars colony for the elite, I cover what they say, and then they go, Alex is crazy and made this up. So see, that's how they operate. They think you're stupid. But I tell you, uncanny that the ancients said 20,000 years, bigger than the Earth, and all the rest of it, and here it is. The question is, we're trying to look at its orbit. I mean, is it even scheduled? I guess it's coming in closer. That's what they're saying. That's how they're able to see it now. It's coming in from this orbit. What is it? They're saying many, many, many times further out from Pluto.
You one ugly motherfucker.
For all of recorded history, civilizations around the world praised the health benefits of silver. At InfoWars Life, Our mission is to bring you the highest quality, purest, cleanest, effective colloidal silver on the market today for the lowest price available. You don't have to be a doctor to know. The fall and winter months are the most dangerous time of year in North America when it comes to you and your family's health. InfoWarsLife.com is very excited to announce our biggest run yet of Silver Bullet colloidal silver, exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com. Now, InfoWarsLife.com has taken colloidal silver to the next level using a cutting-edge technique that is free of toxic artificial additives. Now more than ever, it's important to stock up on high-quality Silver Bullet from InfoWarsLife.com and to help others during Christmas by teaching them about the powerful benefits of silver. Secure your Silver Bullet today at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
Rabbis for centuries, not recently, ladies and gentlemen, for centuries have had teachings where they have spotted comets and they've noticed what has happened a few years later. They've spotted a comet and they've noted what's happened years later. And they always will tell you the appearance of a comet means trouble for the world.
I know there's not a parent in America who doesn't feel the same overwhelming grief that I do. The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own. Among the fallen were also teachers, men and women who devoted their lives to helping our children fulfill their dream.
Once you discover an asteroid, you got to wait a little while to get enough of a segment of its orbit to calculate what the full orbit will be to know if it will come in harm's way. So, we get the orbit. Turns out, in the year 2029, the month of Apophis will come so close to Earth that it will dip below our orbiting communication satellites. And it is the size of the Rose Bowl. It'll be the largest, closest thing we have ever observed to come by Earth. The orbit we now have for it is uncertain enough, because these things are hard to measure and hard to get an exact distance for. The orbit is uncertain enough So we cannot tell you exactly where that trajectory will be.
So it doesn't matter where it goes through that keyhole.
Now, that's if it goes through the center. If it goes through other places within that keyhole, then the contact point shifts further into the Pacific or closer towards
Las
North
Vegas or
America.
something, yeah.
Yes. Okay? But if it goes through the center, it hits the Pacific Ocean, plunges down into the Pacific to a depth of 3 miles, at which point it explodes, cavitating the Pacific.
Hey!
I know it sounds crazy. In a hole that's 3 miles wide, 3 miles deep. That will send a tsunami wave outward from that location. That's asteroid that breaks up from the gravitational stress as it nears bodies during its life. And so the asteroid becomes a train of objects that would then come and hit one right after another. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit. It's unlikely. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit. This is so many hours before the next asteroid will hit.
The orbits of some of our planets were being messed around with. So we've got Neptune, Uranus and Pluto, and they call it it's perturbation of the orbits. So in other words, there's some large other planet. This is how they found all the planets originally. They found the orbits were being messed around with, and they went looking for an object that was messing with the planetary orbits. So they went looking for another body, and Dr. Harrington noticed that we've got a bit of a problem with these other 3 planets. When he's completing his observations and he sent them off to NASA, he took a load of films, he made some celestial maps, he plotted the orbit of planet X, he said he'd found it, and all those films went off to NASA and were mysteriously never seen again. Very weird, isn't it?
Very weird.
Yeah, and they've had these in mainstream media, believe it or not. Not so much in the United States. This has been China and Russia have gone with these stories, talking about 2 suns in the sky. People are taking clear pictures of it, and it's all very real indicators that Nibiru is coming in to trash everything, and it's nearly here. That's a creepy looking image, isn't it? You see the bits coming off the edge of it. This is what a lot of people are saying is the dust trail coming off it, which is the iron-based dust trail. So this is like iron oxide, and this is one of the effects they've said of the iron oxide is when it comes swishing by our planet and we get a dose of this iron oxide trail off it. It's going to turn the rivers and the waters to blood. So it will make all the water go red. This is September, so we go into the red zone in September then. So this is what a lot of people were getting spooked by. Just about everybody you can get anywhere going underground. So underground is the place to be. So you certainly don't want to be out in the open, and you also, well, you're need a lot of supplies. I mean, what else could cause this? What else would make people dig holes under the entire United States? Is a third world war going to be that bad that you need to excavate that much? And if that's true, that's where the government suddenly moved to. Because did you know the government moved off the East Coast? Because they've got an underground military base right under the airport, haven't they? The kind of speed this thing's going to be coming in, and if you look there, can you see the big yellow 2016? So let's get into the hot spot here. So this is saying that as we come through November and December, this is going to be like Venus kind of brightness. So this is going to be the giveaway. So let's just say that the timing's wrong on this one. It might not be around March, but this would be what to look for, and this would be the amount of time you would have left until you start getting problems. Onto that there and say that they got it out at about the July kind of level, which is why I'm thinking that our March date probably isn't going to happen. I say probably meaning definitely. We've got all the events happening and everyone's been building up, but they've been digging holes since '78, haven't they? Yeah, even before then. I mean, we've got the underground stuff that's happened in Russia. We've got military movement all over the place. We've got Chinese cities hanging around with nobody in them that can house 30 million people, because they said that there could potentially be a 600-foot wave, like a giant tsunami. And was it? I think it was higher than that, actually. There's a giant tsunami that's going to take out the east coast of the States. And if that was the case, you'd want to be on high ground, which is why Colorado is a top place to be. The Chinese cities they've built are on high ground. I mean, this is all going back to the previous stories that have been floating around about all these odd places in the world where you've got safe havens underground, you've got bunkers for the elite, you've got places high up which can house millions of people around the world. It's just all a bit peculiar. Look at December. We've got the faintest stars visible in an urban neighborhood with the naked eye. That's 3 months, isn't it? Just about, if we're in between December and January. And that was seen and it was observed, and we've got we look at all the different places that spotted this thing. Yeah, this is September, so we go into the red zone in September then. So this is what a lot of people were getting spooked. If there is something that's out on the edge or it's coming by and it's nearer to them, it's doing some pretty horrible things to them. Because if we've got another sun, here we go. Look, 89 to 2002. Look at that, it's gone swirly.
More and more encounters with giants emerging from UFOs. That the Anunnaki or celestial giants are coming back.
If you were planning a harp war with other nations that have the same technology, you know who's going to suffer the most. It's going to be people on top side, isn't it? But I don't think we can take this story and we can throw it away and we can say, well, it didn't happen in 2003, I think was one of the times it was meant to happen. It just keeps coming back. The Nibiru story is always there, and people are like, nah, this is pure fabrication. It's just not going to happen. We've been told it's behind the sun, it's hiding somewhere, you know, there's always some kind of reason why we can't see it. But when it does pop up, I think at the very least we'll have 40 days notice on it. But I think this is one of those stories that you can kind of tuck away in your top drawer and just go, But I'm not gonna entirely bin this story, because there's some strange stuff going on, and people have seen something that looks awful like this before. Even if it isn't Planet X, there's something swinging around every 350 years that's causing a lot of trouble. Or even if it isn't Planet X, there's something swinging around every 350 years that's causing a lot of trouble. And we're about due for another one. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but there's something out there, and you know, I think it would be a good idea to keep an eye out for it.
We as a species are simply too stupid to figure out the universe that we're investigating.
This is September, so we go into the red zone in September then. So this is what a lot of people were getting spooked by. That was related to the original flood, like I was saying, when it whacked Tiamat, or if it came through and knocked out Ceres and created the asteroid belt, don't know. But either way, if something big turned up, that's looking similar to the last time something really bad happened, isn't it? What NASA will tell you is that most solar systems are actually not singular solar systems, they're binary, which means that you've got a sun and then another sun. So there's two suns, and effectively they would be known as, there'd be two solar systems, but effectively going round each other kind of thing, you know? So they interact with each other, and they're binary solar systems, and they say 80% of solar systems are like that. If we've got a sun coming in that's got Nibiru going around it, it's coming into the solar system, and this thing's like a heater. Now look at what's happened to Venus. See the picture?
Right.
From 1978, right, where that map of the tunnels was coming from in the 70s, look at that, to 1999, we've got a couple of decades here, and a 2,500% increase in green light coming off Venus. That's a lot of light, isn't it, coming off it? That's enormous.
Right.
And then look, rapid appearance of clouds on Mars. You know, this stuff is weird, isn't it? Origin out here, but we've got a couple of decades here, and then look, 50% erosion of ice features, and you can't hide it. I mean, if you're going on about Jupiter and what's going on with Jupiter's white ovals, Look at them changing. I mean, Jupiter's got, remember that the great big spot on Jupiter? There's a lot of really weird stuff going on, saying Jupiter has gone up 18 degrees in 10 years. I mean, what would happen if that happened to us on Earth? 18 degrees in 10 years? I mean, look at this. Towering storms more than 100 kilometers high. 100-kilometer high storms going through Jupiter's cloud deck for the first time. I mean, that's pretty severe. I mean, you know, that's right. It's not good to see that happening. And then look at this. This is the cue ball. So we've got Uranus here. Now, can you spot any distinctive features on that? That is a cue ball picture. Okay. Now that's 1986. Now look what happens to it. That's a bit of a problem. Look at that, from 1996 to 2002. It's 40% brighter. It's almost as if that thing's closer to what's coming in, and they're getting a lot of changes because they're nearer to it than we are.
The use of the International Space Station into the mid-2020s so that it can continue to serve as a test bed for some of those advanced technologies and a jumping off point, as well as a scientific platform, an educational platform, even a diplomatic platform. The fourth component is a set of missions of increasing ambition, taking humans further and further into space, beyond, way beyond low Earth orbit. What we'll be doing next is setting up operations in a stable orbit around the moon, which in fact is the most sensible jumping off point for a Mars mission, because as opposed to the surface of the moon, you don't have to spend the energy to lift all of your payloads back out of moon's gravity. This is a conclusion of, I think, everybody who's looked really carefully at the dynamics and the mechanics of getting to Mars. You do it from a jumping off point in stable orbit around the moon. The ARM mission exploits and will exploit a whole variety of technologies that come together to advance our progress toward the moon. One is human operations in a stable orbit around the moon. Another is the combination of robotic capabilities that will pull a boulder from an asteroid and bring it into that orbit, and the human capabilities, the judgment, the on-the-spot decision-making that only humans can deliver. And the demonstration of advanced electric propulsion capabilities that will be used to...
The big part of the day is this afternoon, when industry is allowed to come in and spend a little time with us. And they've been working with us for a number of years now, but this is sort of the piece de resistance when we bring them in and let them actually look at the mock-ups. I have to thank also Chris Scalise and the team out here at Goddard for not only hosting and establishing this test facility, but for hosting this particular program. So thanks again to Chris and the team here. You know, engineers and scientists actually around the world have been involved in thinking about this for a number of years now. As Dr. Holdren said, we want to be smarter than the dinosaur. And at NASA, what we've tried to do is take a step-by-step incremental approach to being able to get humans to Mars. If you look at how we've arranged it, we have three, I consider them zones in the solar system. And those zones are actually, you know, where we live today. We live and work in near-Earth orbit. We've been on the International Space Station for almost 16 years, and we have learned a lot, and there's a lot more to be learned, as Dr. Holdren mentioned. The other thing is the next area we want to go is back to the lunar vicinity. And so when we're working on the International Space Station, we just call that the Earth-reliant phase. We rely on our home planet. We're hours away, so we can get supplies, we can rescue crews, we can do lots of things. We want to next move out where we're a little bit more distant.
Of communications. We're live from the Robotic Operations Center, where NASA is developing some of the technologies needed for its asteroid redirect mission, or ARM. You just saw a short video highlighting the mission, and we have some special guests here today to tell us more about what ARM is, how it will enable our journey to Mars, and help protect our planet. Our first guest today is the President's Science Advisor, Dr. John P. Holdren, NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, and ARM Program Director Michelle Gates. First, we will hear some remarks from Mr. Holdren.
Thank you very much. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. I wanted to put the ARM mission in context of the President's and NASA's vision for expanding the human exploration of space. That vision is ambitious, it's coherent, it's systematic. It has 4 major pieces. The first piece of that strategy is working with the private sector, working with industry to develop the most cost-effective capacities to expand our presence in space that we possibly can. The second component is developing the new, innovative, advanced technologies that will be needed to take us all the way to Mars and beyond. That involves in-space refueling, it involves habitat development, it involves how you protect astronauts on these long missions, it involves advanced propulsion and much more. The third element of this strategy is extending.
And in that particular case, when we go out to what we call cislunar space, the vicinity around the moon, we're going to be a couple of days away. So that's going to stretch our capabilities. We're going to have to figure out new ways to supply ourselves, to test the technologies that are going to be necessary when we finally take the big step to go with humans out to Mars. So time-wise, we've been working on this Earth-reliant phase for about 50 years when you really get down to it. When we move out to cislunar space, that's going to be the period of the 20s. And then when you get to the 30s, then now we're going to be Earth independent. That is a big step. You know, we've been dreaming, humans have been dreaming of going to Mars as long as people have been looking up at the sky almost, and we're finally almost there. Some of us can taste it. So when we move out to Mars, that's what we call the Earth independent stage, where we're going to have to either take stuff with you, make it on the way, or make it when you get to the Martian surface. So those are the technologies that Dr. Holdren was talking about. We're really excited about being out here to talk a little bit about the asteroid redirect mission, because for us, having been an astronaut before and having found out that flying in space is not like flying an airplane, things that you intuitively do when you're flying an airplane don't work in space due to something called orbital mechanics. We also know that when we get to low gravity and no gravity environments, the way that
reach that asteroid and bring a boulder back from it. And the other benefits of this mission, which are just extraordinary, include demonstrating capabilities that ultimately we may need to deflect an asteroid on a collision course with the Earth. This is a hazard that 65 million years ago the dinosaurs succumbed to. We have to be smarter than the dinosaurs. They went extinct when a large asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula. And we are going to get better through this asteroid redirect mission at identifying dangerous asteroids, learning how to deflect them, and we'll learn in addition how to exploit asteroids commercially. Asteroids contain materials that can be used to resupply space missions and ultimately may be valuable sources of materials for long-term existence of humans in space. You know, President Obama has said, we're going to space not just to visit, but to stay. And the asteroid mission is the next important step on that trajectory.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. We'll now hear from Administrator Bolden.
Thanks very much, and I want to thank Dr. Holdren especially for taking time to come out here and be with us on this very special day. It's a full day. I also want to thank Michelle Gates, who's the program manager for the asteroid redirect mission. As I said, we're going to talk just a little bit briefly about the overview of the mission, a little details, and then